Now, you may perhaps quite rightly wonder if someone who works in a company called GfK NOP is actually the right person to stand in front of you and talk about branding. But that's a different question. Brands are sometimes chosen, sometimes thrust upon you. So let's hopefully we can put that to the side, and hopefully I'll demonstrate why I'm here, which is really to advocate putting the consumer at the heart of your thinking. Self-evident perhaps, but arguably maybe in new ways, and maybe putting processes behind that could be a new step. Even those of you who are B2B focused, I'd still say it's very, very pertinent here. One of our biggest clients within our group, for example, is the packaging company Tetra Pak. Now, their customers are not the average person in the street, but they've set a great deal of store by understanding consumers, and they believe that the best way to market themselves to supermarkets and the manufacturers who are their customers is to prove a better understanding of what the end customer actually wants. So I think even if there is an intermediary step, it can be very powerful and give you a real competitive edge if you can demonstrate that to your own intermediary customers what the end consumer actually wants. So hopefully that's made the case. Okay, self-evident truth, customer first. I mean, go way back, and clearly this was not the case when a car was offered in any colour you want as long as it's black. And you may say, oh yeah, but that was the early 20th century, things are totally different now. And hopefully you're right to a degree. But try to look within your own businesses and your own product development, your own service development, and ask yourself, have you ever implemented something, built in a feature or benefit, simply because you could, without necessarily asking whether that's something that the end consumer actually wanted. Even within the recent past, we have close examples of consumer electronics manufacturers building in 365-day-ahead timers into their video recorders because they could, because they were an engineering-led company, and rather than stopping to think, who on earth would ever want that, they did it anyway. And so I'd advocate, companies, it still goes on plenty, even though the example we've chosen here is something rather historic. And even more than that, I would say, okay, everyone's putting the customer first, but we would argue that the companies that are having actually the greatest degree of success out there in the marketplace at the moment are doing so because they fundamentally understand what people want and then give it to them. It's a rather simplistic assertion, but let's all examine the degree to which we're currently doing that. And also the market changes day by day, week by week, year by year, and keeping step with those kind of changes is clearly crucial. So, giving people what they want, and likewise this quote from the FT a while back, brands are becoming more and more important. But what really do we mean by a brand? What's actually part of the process of brand building, and how can you start to implement some of these processes within your companies? So first I'm going to really talk about these these rocket science issues of understanding what people want and then actually going out and giving it to them. I'm also going to talk about the difference between providing products and services and the difference between building a strong brand and building an identifiable, distinctive brand in the marketplace. Clearly there are huge linkages between those things, but where are the edges of that, and how do you actually start to do both of those things? So let's start with the consumer. As David said at the beginning, marketing textbooks, not a big fan. This is a classic approach from marketing textbook. What does the customer want? What's inside all of us? What are we looking for? Well, whatever the product or service, we're looking for it to do something. If we're having a drink, we want it to taste nice. If we've got a mobile phone, we want it to give us a reliable signal and make good phone calls. If we're looking for a gym, we want it to be open when we want it and offer all the right running machines and so on. There are all kinds of functional needs that people have from the products and services they buy. Functional needs. That's the base level. And increasingly, it's harder and harder, we believe, for companies to stay ahead of the competition simply by offering better and better functional benefits, serving these functional needs, because it's so easy and quick for other people to come in and copy what you're doing. Another of our big clients is IKEA. They say once they launch a product, 3 months they think they have before someone else is doing the same thing. So it's harder and harder to really stay ahead of the game just purely by offering a better functional benefit than the next guy. So, up the level, up the chain, to emotional benefits. Here we're talking about things like making people feel good, making them feel they made the right choice, making them look good in front of their friends, enabling their socializing behaviors, offering them some kind of emotional benefit. And then even further up the chain is what we call, within each of us, we have a set of personal values. which drive us as a person, that act as guiding principles in our life, that make us different from the person sitting next to us. Even if we may be demographically very similar or live even in the same street, we may have a fundamentally different set of things that drive us as a person. And brands can start to actually engage with people on all of these different levels. So this is the same pyramid, but from the perspective of a brand. So where consumers have a functional need, good taste goods and so on, the brand or the product has a duty or has a better potential for success if it can match that need by offering a corresponding functional benefit. It washes your clothes faster. It gives all the functionalities in one device. It tastes nice. This is a spray-on plaster. This is a washing machine, offering these functional benefits that tap into the underlying consumer functional needs. Likewise, if there are emotional needs, then there should be emotional benefits. It gives you these ads for Nokia. Which side of me shall I be? Speak very much to the emotional benefit of enabling individuality and freedom. And then, similarly, brand values. This is an ad for Walker's Crisps, made with 100% British potatoes. Why that should be relevant, well, we'll see later. But that's tapping into the need or the value of cultural issues, cultural purity. So, what we do as a group is try to put these two things together. There we are. It's not rocket science. If there's a need, there should be a benefit. And the same goes all the way up these two sets of triangles. Now, I'm going to talk about two different parts of those two triangles. Firstly, I'm going to talk about the needs and benefits. Within our group, we spend a lot of time tracking consumer trends. Very, wishy-washy, very trendy phrase in itself right now. But behind that flim-flam is actually what we're trying to do is understand how the needs of consumers, in our case all around the world, but in your case it may be more UK or European based, what are their needs and how are they changing? How are people's lives changing and what opportunities does that give you? So the trends that we see, and I'll show you some examples, are illustrative in our minds of an underlying consumer need, which follow it round. The brand and product through innovation and product development and brand development therefore can match those underlying needs by offering corresponding benefits. Now, I don't expect you to be able to read all of this, but this is a set of 18 global consumer trends that we see in our work. A variety of things which are based on different geographical factors, different life stages, different lifestyles, and different personal values. All of these things we see, but not to an equal degree in each different person. But we see these things. I'm not going to go through them one by one. Be happy to talk about them in the coffee break. But the key point is that each of these different trends are symptomatic of different underlying consumer needs. So, for example, we see increasing migration. We have now 500,000 Poles in the UK in the last 2 years. That has associated with it, for those people, a real set of definite needs about being alienated, about being in a new environment where they're unfamiliar, about being far from home and wanting to keep in touch. There's a real set of consumer needs for that group of people in that situation. And even if it's not so extreme, we see all around the world, a gradual move either in the developing world into cities or in the developed world out of cities. So all these kind of migratory issues are things that you can arguably tap into. Likewise, busy lifestyles. I'm sure we can all relate very much to that particular trend. That, again, has a real set of consumer needs associated with it, to do with convenient products, to do with flexible products, and to do with portable products. Likewise, the mobile lifestyles, which, again, I'm sure many of you in this room are key exponents of that particular lifestyle. When it comes to personal values, we see a sort of a culture of anxiety, if you will, where people have a heightened need for feeling secure, they feel threatened. There's a corresponding need for personal security, hence the real rise in gated communities, home security products, and so on. Aside from the specific examples, hopefully you can see that what I'm saying, these trends are not just an academic exercise, a sort of consultant's tool. They're actually illustrative of an underlying consumer need. And of course, there can be a corresponding set of product and brand innovations that serve those needs. So in the case of migration, you have money transfer products, you have lower roaming charges for mobile phone services, you have food importation business, businesses. Most of the major supermarkets in the UK, for instance, now stock a range of Polish food, if you'd like to try it. But that's obviously there in the first instance for those Polish immigrants. But in the same way that we all tried, other types of ethnic food in the past, same with Polish food potentially in the future. And you'll see likewise, for each of these different trends and needs, there has already been a corresponding set of product innovations. And these can be really interesting, even if these are not from the areas that you yourself are working in. It's always really powerful. Why reinvent the wheel if you can see what someone else has done and then turn it, apply it actually to your business? That's something much more powerful.